Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is News and Week in Review, where we're going to dive into a variety of news pieces, the videos of the week, the games I played, the Board Game Geek Hotness, all that and more, with links and timestamps down below. Before we dive into all of that, though, we do have a sponsor this week, and this week's sponsor is Furylands, Ashes of Avalon, the board game. Well, I'll have a link to it down below. You can go ahead and back this now on Kickstarter. In Furylands, you're going to be going on an epic campaign. Each scenario is going to take roughly 60 minutes to go through. It's a 2 to 4 player game, where you're going to be picking your character and then building out that character. You can master up to 120 skills across 9 different lines, and as you grow in the campaign, you're going to be taking points and various skill points, putting them into various skill trees, which will both enhance the amount of skills you have access to from those skill trees, as well as going to give you stronger and stronger skills. Many of the skills are going to be stronger as you put points into things, which means there's a near infinite variety of ways to build out and customize your characters, to find those competitive advantages as far as how you're going to build a character, which cards and skills are going to be part of that character, what gear you're going to have them, as well as how strong each individual skill grows based on how that build is. Meanwhile, you're going to be engaging against a variety of monsters, a bunch of boss missions as well, final bosses as you go through this campaign. There's a ton to explore in Furylands Ashes of Avalon. We'll have a link to the campaign down below. And with that, we're going to move from Furylands into Radlands. Radlands announced an expansion coming out, Radlands Cults of Chrome, which I knew for a while. Well, knew is a relative term. This is the first I found out about this. I always suspected Radlands would have an expansion. I believe when they originally came out with it, they're like, we're not going to expand it. And I was like, it's a well-received game. Usually well-received games get expansions, even when people say they won't be. I'm looking at you, Dominion. But Radlands Cult of Chrome, it's an expansion. It does not look like it's going to be a Kickstarter game. It looks like it's going to be available at Gen Con. So if you want to check this one out, this is Radlands, an expansion to a very popular 2-player head-to-head game from Roxley Games. Then we're going to have over here, we have a one-stop shop for tabletop creators. Basically, we have PTS, Publishing Technology and Solutions. This is basically a one-stop shop for working with various game creators. This is something that is being run by the people it's being run by the people responsible for Matago or something like that. There's some overlap with Matago and this company. Stonemaier has a whole blog on this one. You can check it out. Jamie Stegmaier has a whole blog post. But the general idea is they started doing this as like a favor to people they were close with in the industry, and then from there grew it into an actual thing as they realized there was more and more demand for this kind of knowledge in the board game space, where people who had done things can basically pass on that knowledge to others, which is interesting timing because we also have over on Board Game Wire, we have All About Games Consulting, a similar kind of venture. I don't know what the full level of overlap between what these two companies do, but in both instances, both companies are there to help tabletop creators navigate things that they may not know how to navigate, to give them knowledge and information about things that they just aren't informed about. It's basically taking all that front-loaded knowledge you have to deal with when you start a game and taking it and going to experts who can help you along the way. So PTS or AACG, or AAGC, I should say AAGC, something Technology and Solutions, and All About Games Consulting. You can reach out to either or both of those companies if you are a creator who's looking to have some of those smooth edges taken care of along the way. We also have Zoo Tycoon the board game. We have New Shores and an expansion announced for Zoo Tycoon. I believe this was announced a while ago. I think this is the first time we're seeing the cover or art, or you can go ahead and check out the Kickstarter preview page already. But this is Zoo Tycoon getting an expansion to that game. We also have over here, we have Hedgemaze coming to you from Floodgate. I don't know a lot about this game so far. I do know it's polyomino based and the box looks cute. And it's from Floodgate. Those are 3 things I know about the game, and now you know 3 things about the game that you may or may not have already known. We also have over here Ares. Ares is putting out Aeterna, a game about ancient Rome from Martin Wallace. Martin Wallace puts out a ton of games. They're generally very well received. He's obviously the creator of Brass Birmingham, the #1 game on Board Game Geek, Age of Steam, Railways of the World, all these various games, and more. Steam as well. Ton of games. He has his own publishing company, but he still does design work for other companies as well. And this is Aeterna coming to you from Ares Games about founding Rome to the fall of the Western Roman Empire as you try to increase your influence over the Eternal City. We also have Katmai over here. Katmai, the Beers of Brooks River. This is coming to you from, what's it called? Oh my gosh, it's coming to you from, where is this? The company is, I'm always blanking on the name of the company. It is, I'm blanking. Where is it? Osprey Games. Osprey Games, we have Katmai coming to you, a game about beers. This is not the typical game I usually see from Osprey these days. They usually have like games that look like heavy Euros or games that are war games. Those are the main categories of things I tend to see from Osprey. Katmai looks very different. It looks lighter, more accessible, and nature-themed, which feels different for Osprey game. So if you're interested in that, you can go ahead and check that out. And that is basically what we have there, which brings us to the Board Game Geek Hotness. We're going to go ahead and review the Board Game Geek Hotness. As usual, we are reviewing just a bunch of games that are currently trending in the hotness. Over here, this week we're going to be talking about a few things. Let me just scroll down and see which ones I have over here. We have, in general, I try to pick a few, but every week there's always new ones, old ones, things dropping in, things dropping out. We obviously have Terraria, the board game over here, because they just announced the crowdfunding, well, the crowdfunding campaign just launched, doing fairly well. Terraria based on the video game, so if you want to check that one out. I still need to check out the campaign page. I haven't done so yet. I've played Terraria, the video game, so I'm curious to see how they implement the board game aspect of things. But we also have other things over here. We have Expeditions, because the expansion just launched for that one. Not heavily going to go into that. I talked about that in the prior week. I think most of the ones I want to talk about are actually higher up over here. We have Ezra Nehemiah. This one over here has been delivering and being generally well received. I think it's currently ranked an 8.3 on Board Game Geek. The current information I've seen about it mostly seems to be it's very heavy. It's amongst the heavier games from Garfield Games. But so far, most feedback has been fairly positive. As always, check out the negative reviews as well to see if it's for you. Like if you go on the Board Game Geek reviews, you can see a bunch of people who love the game. But check out the people who rated it a 6.2 because those are pieces of information to check out to see if a game is for you and see if those complaints resonate with you or whether you're willing to look past them and give a game a shot. All games will have mediocre reviews. It's just a question of which ones resonate with you and which ones make you think whether you should get the game. We also have over here, we have Sphinx over here. Sphinx is coming to you from Impatience Games, the people who brought you Onirim and Cassian and Arion and all those various games in the Oniverse series. I don't know if Sphinx is in the Oniverse series. It looks intriguing. I believe I will be reviewing it at some point. We also have, almost in board game news itself, we have Radlands, by the way. Radlands, which makes sense because we covered this already. With the announcement of the expansion, Radlands has been jumping up in the Board Game Geek Hotness over here. That's because of the expansion. Nothing crazy going on. Similarly, we have Expedition at number 2. Expedition Gears of Corruption. Similar reasons. We talked about this. This is the new expansion to Expeditions, which I had a review go up this past week if you want to check that out. And the lastly, number 1 spot, for all the wrong reasons, we have Wonders of the First CCG, which was going to be a news piece. I was going to put in the news piece, and then I was like, you know what? Maybe we'll cover it in the Hotness because it's currently the number 1 game in the Hotness. And this is the number 1 game in the Hotness for all the wrong reasons. And I always want to be mindful here. There's been questions about, oh, we'll get into other things at different points, but I'm always mindful on covering news pieces that have a villain, so to speak. And the reason is because, frankly, to do something like that proper justice from a journalistic perspective, you should be reaching out to all the people involved. I should be reaching out to Board Game Geek. I should be reaching out to Wonders of the First. I should be reaching out to anyone else, Jonathan Gilmore, to a variety of people along the way who have been a part of this thing. So to really do this kind of news story full justice, you really need someone like, Board Game Wire does a great job with this stuff. King of Average will often do a great job with this stuff. So there's different types of people who take more of a journalistic deep dive approach. And I'm not doing that. I will try to be as fair as I possibly can with the knowledge I do know, but I'm not like doing a full deep dive on the story. The short version of Wonders of the First is Wonders of the First launched on Kickstarter. They unfortunately got cancelled because they had NFTs in their project, which Kickstarter does not allow. There was a lot of buzz along the way around the fact that they had a lot of AI art. They very proudly own their inclusion of AI art in the project, and there's a whole different conversation to get into the nature of AI art and how it's done. I think an interesting thing to begin with is they very much owned it. They weren't like, hey, we use AI art. They were like, no, AI art, if that makes sense. And that definitely, the combination of that, plus the combination of it being a CCG with a high degree of FOMO and get everything in now, definitely put a lot of people who are already anti-AI even more so against this project. It became a beacon because it did 1.5 million, and the combination of all the factors just made it something that people who are anti-AI were more vocal about this project than you might be about a project that raised $30,000. Ultimately, the project was cancelled, not because of the AI, but because of the inclusion of NFTs as a reward, which goes against Kickstarter's policies. And at that point, I believe they said they were going to do a pre-order on their own site, but it seems they went back to Kickstarter at some point. I missed when that happened. They relaunched on Kickstarter, currently around 1 million, so not doing the same 1.5 the first time, which has gotta hurt, because as a creator, you're like looking at 500,000 just lost, which has gotta really suck, although it's always a question of how much of that was because people did want NFTs and now they're no longer present. So I haven't done a full deep dive into that aspect of things. What I do know is currently it's trending on BGG because there are still a lot of vocal people around it. And people who are vocally against the project because of the nature of what it represents, which to a lot of people, and I understand the fears and concerns around this, to a lot of people it's the feeling that you can just AI art something and just bring something to life. And that combined with the nature of it being a very collectible CCG, combined with it having NFTs in the project, or at least in the past version of the project, it does very much paint a picture of the concept of what people often call tech bros. Now, I don't know the people behind Wonders of the First. I've loosely talked to one of them briefly on Facebook. I think they sent me an email one time asking if I wanted to cover the game. I said it's not for me. I don't want to get involved in this kind of thing. But I am someone who tends to be more understanding of the AI art conversation to begin with. For better or for worse, it's a complicated conversation, but I am not immediately against it. I think there are very often things to be mindful of or concerned about. I'm not immediately against all use of AI art. That's a long conversation for a different day. But even for myself, coming at from that stance, which you can agree with or disagree with, even this project, I'm like, I would like to stay a healthy 10 feet away because of the combination of AI, CCG, and NFT inclusion. It really paints a picture of, again, what I refer to as tech bros. It doesn't mean anyone in the project is bad, doesn't mean anyone is this, that, or the other. I'm always hesitant to use labels because it others people. It's very easy to paint a picture of us versus them when you apply any kind of label to another human being. And I don't know the people behind the project. I don't know their intent. I don't know their stance. I don't know if they're trying to get a fast one over someone or if they're just trying to bring something to life and they really believe fully in the vision that they're doing. I don't. What I do have is I have a bunch of external things that do paint a negative picture all taken together, but I don't know the full picture of everything. So I'm trying to be fair in the way I cover this in terms of properly characterizing the things that are flags, and there are more to come, while also being mindful that I don't know the people behind it, and I don't want to demonize anyone along the way. As far as further flags, some of the issues that have been present is the game's been getting a lot of poor ratings on Board Game Geek. A lot of people are against the project. BGG does allow people to effectively rating bomb a project. Is that called rating bomb? Is that what it's called? I think it's called rating... No, there's a thing for... I can't remember what it's called. Review bomb, that's what it was. Rating bomb sounded wrong. People are effectively review bombing the project, which BGG, to the best of my knowledge, does allow. What BGG does not allow is a coordinated effort from the creators of said game to enhance those ratings. And that does seem to be what's been happening as a nature to combat the negative ratings. So seemingly, a lot of people behind Wonders of the First have been rating the game very positively, and those ratings have been removed. Which, again, to be fair to all parties, from the side of Wonders of the First, that would feel very unfair. All these ratings of people who haven't even played the game, they're review bombing the project, and our ratings are taken away by BGG. That's gotta feel unfair, and I'm sympathetic to that stance. What is unfortunate is they chose to resolve that unfairness by directly calling the owner of BGG's phone, which is not a listed number. They got a hold of his personal number. They called his personal number to try to deal with this, which I hesitate to use the word harassment, but I certainly am fine calling it inappropriate. It's an inappropriate way to resolve the problem by not going through the proper channels, by hunting down the individual's phone number, and that certainly doesn't make anyone who's heard about this biased towards Wonders of the First. There's also an additional aspect that over on Kickstarter, they've doxed someone who has been very vocally critical of the project. They've doxed their information, basically, and loosely doxed. I want to be clear. They didn't, announce home address, but they basically linked other clarifying information about that persona over on Kickstarter. Now, to be very clear, it does fit Kickstarter's definition of doxing. It is a loose doxing, meaning me judging from the side point with my own 2 cents. It doesn't feel nearly as harmful as the nature of giving someone's personal information out onto the internet. It is a light doxing, but still doxing nonetheless. So there's a difference between stealing $1 and stealing, $1,000. There is a difference in life. Both can be wrong, but there are gradients. I think this is wrong, and I think there are gradients. And in general, the way they've been communicating with people, like the way their Kickstarter campaign page right now is, they've kind of sized up the issues by removing all the comments they possibly can, while basically pinning every single comment that is positive to the top, so that you kind of have to really scroll on the Kickstarter page to actually get to constructive dialogue, because that's been the way to shut down the opposition. Which again, I'm sympathetic to what they're trying to do. They're trying to effectively manage what feels like an unfair attack against their project by people who are just anti-AI. The way they're handling it, though, is just making the problem worse. Now, make no mistake, there are also, there's other things as well. There's the nature of people have screenshots from within their Discord of basically people saying, hey, we're going to open up fake credit cards to go ahead and back this project. And then everyone laughing along with it and being like, hey, it's not really fraud if you never intended to pay in the first place. These are actual screenshots from the Discord. Now, again, to give full credit, very often these types of things are probably joking. They're probably meant in jest. I don't know about you, but conversations I've shared with people that I thought were private, I wouldn't want those taken out of context, and I would be very hesitate them. The amount of things I've said to friends, I guarantee you I couldn't run for president anywhere. Not just because I'm Canadian, so I can't be president here, but there's no political office I could ever hold if screenshots of conversations I thought were private between a bunch of buddies were released. And that's not to justify behavior. I think we all operate with a certain looseness when we think we're in a comfortable zone. It doesn't mean that the behavior is okay. It just means that I'm hesitant to hold too strongly jokes against people, while also thinking that they're relevant, especially with the nature of CCGs. CCGs already have a hard reputation on crowdfunding because of the nature of people investing tons of money into them, hoping they take off. And sometimes, there's a whole lot of rumors around CCGs on crowdfunding I don't even know about because whatever. There's a lot of things with CCGs and crowdfunding. They do have a not the best reputation, especially when they don't come from established people in the industry. I think it's very different an Alter's CCG situation versus a Wonders of the First CCG situation. And so where I'm kind of left off with this is my own 2 cents from being on the sidelines from everything I've put together, is it really feels like Wonders of the First are a bunch of people who don't necessarily have the same concerns about certain elements of technology in the space, as other people do. Meaning people have different stances. People in life are allowed to have different stances. But what they've done is they've taken those stances, brought a board game to life, have had to deal with a lot of people who are upset about the nature of everything it represents, for better or for worse, fair or unfair. They have to deal with that crowd, and the way they've dealt with that has only made the problem worse. So I'm kind of sympathetic to the situation they found themselves in, while also being less sympathetic to the way they've handled said situation and only made it worse. And I hope that's as fair as a coverage of the entire situation that I can convey. I don't want to demonize people. I'm not here to do that. I don't know the full situation of everything. I do think, personally, I'd stay away from the project on my end because there's too many things that are problematic for me, even if I can be reasonably understanding of everything going on as much as I can be. And that's kind of where we are. That's your news piece about one of the games in the Board Game Geek Hotness, the number 1 game in the Board Game Geek Hotness, for all the wrong reasons. And with that, we're going to go ahead and continue to, that was a longer segment than usual. Last week's Week in Review, by the way, last week's Week in Review was incredibly short. Why won't this stop? Stop. There we go. Last week's Week in Review was incredibly short because I had my son on my lap, and I was like, you know what? I felt a little rushed, and this week we're taking more time with it, although he's still homesick. Still is the wrong word. He's homesick again, so he's actually upstairs, and I'm just hoping he doesn't come down, so we'll see how this goes. Anyways, with that, let's go ahead and dive into the games I played. As usual, the games I played, this is a short listing of some of the games I've played this past week, starting off with Canvas. Canvas is always a fun game. I'm glad I got to play it this week because I always enjoy playing through Canvas, and that's kind of the extent of it. I like Canvas. I think Canvas is a very flexible game that accommodates a variety of player counts of different skill levels. I think it expands very nicely as far as the overall what the game does and how the various expansions that they add to the game, how simply they incorporate into the game. I like Canvas. I recommend Canvas. That's kind of where we are with that. I've also started playing through Divinus. I've gotten the first 2 scenarios into Divinus, I think. Maybe 3. I think it was 2. I think it was 2 scenarios into Divinus. I'm not yet sold in Divinus. I plan on continuing to play it. I'm not yet sold. Like I played the first 2 scenarios, and it kind of was the first experience I had the first time round. Which is to say, not a bad game, but there's games that like hook me a bit more, and there's games that don't. And as a legacy game that wants me to play 12 games, I'm currently like, will I play 12 games? I don't yet know. It depends on how it iterates and develops as I continue to play through it. So I tend to like legacy games. We'll see what happens with Divinus. For right now, I will be continuing to play it, and you'll have thoughts and opinions as I get further into it. I also have Codenames. Played a whole bunch of rounds of Codenames this past week. Managed to be on Timriel, playing Codenames in general, playing Codenames live. Always a fan of Codenames. I've been playing a ton of Codenames Duet the past several months, and I've been playing a lot of Codenames the past several months. It is still one of the most played games in my collection, easily, especially when you combine the 2 games together, Codenames and Codenames Duet. It's a good game. I like the puzzle of trying to fit things together. I love So Clover, and I love Codenames. They're both phenomenal games in my collection. And then we have Dominion. Dominion is continuously fun as well. I continue to play through the app. The real problem I have is I have all the cards for all the Dominion sets, and I'm like, I still want to own that. I don't know how often I'll actually play that, because the app is so easy to table Dominion. It makes the entire experience so satisfying and so streamlined that it makes it hard to justify playing through the physical copy. But I still want the physical copy, so we'll see how that goes. And that's kind of a small smattering of the games I've played, which brings us to the Week in Review, starting off with past Saturday. This past Saturday, we had a preview for Neverrift. I think it was a preview. The gameplay was earlier. The preview for Neverrift was Saturday. This was a sponsored preview done by Meg on the channel. Neverrift is also a CCG game, more about trying to place cards into a grid to tame various creatures. We also had later on Saturday, we had a review for Rebirth. I gave Rebirth a 3.5 out of 5. I thought it was satisfying, a little on the light side. It kind of reminds me of Cascadito, recently, another Reina Knizia tile laying game. Enjoyed both. Neither one blew me away, but both were enjoyable. On Sunday, we had games being added to the collection. This is a new video series that generally was well received. A lot of people seem to like the addition of it, which I'm grateful for. I'm always hesitant when I introduce new things as to whether they actually have an audience. But effectively, I talk about the games leaving the collection all the time. I don't really tell you about the games that I've chosen to incorporate or add to the collection. You usually see them over time, or it might be implied, but it's not clear. And so I want to make that process clear, although it will be an imperfect process because sometimes I'm going to play a game that I'm not yet sure and I need more time, but we'll see how those play out. But either way, that's going to be Sunday's video. People overall enjoy that one. Later on Sunday, we had a deluxe games video, going over a bunch of board game deluxifications. I think we had an insert for Barrage. We had some tokens, some board clips from Tinkertown Games. We had, What else do we have? I don't remember what else is in the video. Meg took care of this one. On Monday, we had two back or not to back, going through a variety of On Monday, we had two back or not to back, going through a variety of crowdfunding campaigns. On Tuesday, we had a Tales of Realms and Runes preview. This is a 2 to 3 player game, which is already an interesting player count, done by Meg. This is a sponsored preview. Later on Tuesday, we had a Rocket Rescue preview. Again, another sponsored preview done by Meg of, well, Rocket Rescue. And then lastly, on Tuesday, we had a Grimcoven unboxing. I've been saying Grimcoven, and I've seen a lot of people in the comments being like, is it Grimcoven or Grimcoven? And I'm like, I don't know at all. I just say Grimcoven because that's what the word looks like to me. And it's not a word I often say, but I think, is it a coven of witches or a coven of witches? Like, it's a coven of witches, but Grimcoven makes more sense to me. I don't know the correct pronunciation, and never rely on me for that. On Wednesday, we had my top 10 favorite roll-and-write games, going over, well, shockingly enough, my top 10 favorite roll-and-writes. On Thursday, we had a Grimcoven review. And now I'm calling Grimcoven because people said it, so I'm just easily influenced. We had a Grimcoven review. I gave it a 4 to 5. I really enjoyed the game overall. The biggest thing I wanted to see was more character depth as far as how you built your character out. I wanted to see more interesting card combinations that could really be charming and interesting and fun. As it was, I still enjoyed the game, but I think it could be, like, I think it could easily be a 4.5 or a 5 even. No, maybe not a 5. Maybe a 5. I think it could easily be a 4.5 depending on how the characters are built in the final game. In its current stance, I like the game a lot, but the main thing I wanted to see was more character depth as far as how you can build them out in different and interesting ways. Similar to games like Slay the Spire, when you really can have different builds for your character. I didn't get that same sense of freedom currently from playing the game. Then we have... That was Thursday. Later on Thursday, I think we had an Agamonia gameplay. That might have been pushed, so we'll see what actually is in that spot. There might be a different game instead, but we'll see. No, I changed something else. I changed it. What went up Thursday? Something else went up Thursday, but I don't remember what it was. Oh my gosh, what was it? Now I'm bothered. Where's my phone? Let me go to my, on Thursday, because we had 3, let me go ahead and see here. Notion, because I changed it, I forgot to post, I forgot to take notes of this video schedule. Sorry for this mid-video cut over here. Not really cut. Thursday, we had Grimcoven. Okay, first we had an Expeditions Gears of Corruption review going up. Then we had a Bunny Boom sponsored gameplay. And then we had Grimcoven review. So, got mostly right. I just forgot to change things around. Agamonia got pushed. So we'll have another Agamonia gameplay for you soon, but not this week. On Friday we had upcoming crowdfunding campaigns, going through a variety of crowdfunding campaigns for the upcoming month of June. So in case you want to get some spoilers or teasers, or I don't know why I said that. I don't say spoilers or teasers. In case you want to get a heads up on the things you might be spending money on in June, that video will cover a bunch of the popular titles coming. And then lastly that was Friday. That is lastly. Which means it's today. Today we have a few things. We're going to have a review for Expressions going up, not Expeditions, that went up earlier. A review for Expressions, as well as a review for Spectral from Bitewing Games. And then next week we'll have a few things. We'll have games leaving the collection, the always there complement to the games that are being added to the collection, which is a new video series. By the way, I asked in the video whether you guys want the video to be combined or separate. Most of you wanted it separate, which I appreciate because I wanted it separate too. And then we also have games that had massive hype. A video about games that had massive hype, that kind of the hype changed or not died. I haven't figured out the title for this, but basically every once in a while games will come out that just balloon in how insanely popular they are for a very short time as people try to get their hands on copies and pay through the nose to get your hands on a copy, and then eventually they become more available. That's this video. I haven't figured out the title because I don't know how to convey that in a short, accessible title. But that's what's coming out. Anyways, and then as far as the games on the table, as usual, these are games I hope to be diving in this week. We have 7th Citadel, which I've been halfway through the rules and starting to dive into it, so hope to be playing this a little bit this week. We have Surf's Up, which is a light game from Good Games Publishing, all about trying to play cards. It reminds me of Chomp. Is that what it's called? Is it called Chomp? No, Chomp's a different game. Chomp's from All Play. It reminds me of a game from Mayday Games, I want to say, that had little, like, almost Lego figures who'd bite sharks, and the sharks would bite the Lego figures and pull off their legs. Get Bit, that's what it is. It reminds me of Get Bit in the gameplay. Haven't actually played it yet, but read the rules. And we also have the Art Project, which I still haven't finished playing through all the scenarios, which I kind of want to do before I get rid of it. I do not think this is a forever game, but I have been enjoying this one. I want to continue playing through it. And they have Deep Rock Galactic, which I'm overdue on a review for, and I've only played the first 2 scenarios. I need to play more of it before I go ahead and review it, so I hope to be diving into that this week as well. And that's what we have. That is basically everything. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.